Hello everybody, this is Shady here, and today I want to talk about something really cool. So yeah, the other day we had a tweet from Hideki Kamiya, obviously of Clover's studio fame. One of the guys obviously worked for Capcom and then Platinum Games and now has started his own studio. But yeah, one thing he tweeted out, which was really interesting. So he basically said to Microsoft, I would love to make Scalebound, pretty much. So yeah, he's actually still interested in doing this, and he actually went out of his way to say to Microsoft, let's make it happen. So yeah, obviously, maybe I need to do some explaining. You guys don't know this, maybe, but basically, essentially, you had Platinum Games who pretty much would make games. There were Platinum Games were basically formed of ex-Capcom employees who were disgruntled, create their own studio, start making original games. Did things like Bayonetta, Vanquish, Bloody Wonderful 101, bunch of other games. And obviously, one of the projects they were working on was a game for the Xbox One called Scalebound. And obviously, this game was going to be headed by Hideki Kamiya, who obviously, the guy who made Devil May Cry, moved on to make Bayonetta, which is a spiritual successor. And this was essentially going to be like this really cool game where basically you play as like a guy who literally just looks as Dante, but has like a dragon that fights alongside him. Also, it's a really cool thing where he put on like headphones while fighting, so you can like, he's actually like listening to the tunes, that the battle music while it's happening, which is like a really cool thing. And yeah, I think he had like a leather jacket from what I remember, and it was just cool because it had like this kind of fantasy setting, but then like those modern things as well, something you only would see in Japanese game. And it looked really cool because you kind of, it played like a hack and slash Devil May Cry style game, but then you had these segments with the dragons, and then there was bits where you fought like giant enemies. And there's also, like, there was this big like gameplay trailer back in the day, like a 9-minute long one, as well as the original trailer. And yeah, the game looked incredible, but we didn't hear anything for ages. And then we found out that the game got cancelled, unfortunately. And mainly because I think Microsoft were kind of pulling the plug on certain games and stuff, and obviously they're run by idiots. So the one like good looking game they had, and the one game that had most people excited, they decided to cancel. But then they make other shit. So, but yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, obviously now things are very different. Obviously now Microsoft are basically a third party publisher. You know, we've seen that they're basically publishing Ninja Gaiden 4. So yeah, this could be a possibility. So yeah, it's just really cool to hear that Kamiya has no bad blood from Microsoft. So yeah, as long as Microsoft wants this to happen, it will happen. And I think it's very possible that this could now, because now they're making games for the PS5 and for the Switch, as well as PC and, Game Pass. So yeah, the audience would be there. PlayStation and Nintendo gamers would buy the hell out of this game. And obviously, this is a game that was kind of, starting off as a Xbox One game. So obviously, if they were to make it now, it would have to obviously be rebuilt from the ground up. But yeah, I think, I think it could definitely happen, You would get people really excited, especially now that, we basically know that Kamiya has no issues with Microsoft. It's also why there's a possibility that we can potentially also see Lost Odyssey 2 happen now, because Kamiya has basically said he has, he has no issue with Microsoft. Obviously, one of the things is they're not very good at communicating with people and studios, especially Japanese ones. That's why like a lot of Japanese devs weren't happy to work with them, and they lost a lot of support, especially from the likes of Square Enix and stuff. Also, they just have no presence in Japan, do they? But obviously, that doesn't matter if they're releasing games on other systems, because obviously things like, Switch, PC, PlayStation are big enough in Japan that it doesn't matter about having to cater to them. Because I think that was the key issue. They, this system, the game was kind of created for the Japanese market, and the Xbox One just never hit out there. So yeah, but yeah, I would freaking love to see this game. And yeah, I just hope it happens. I got my fingers crossed, and I'm praying to the gaming gods that this does happen. Because yeah, I would lose my, if it happens. But Ninja Gaiden 4's happened, so I see no reason why this couldn't. So yeah, let's hope it happens. But yeah, next up, I want to talk about another bit of gaming news that was really interesting. Another Japanese dev, obviously, you know, Hironobu Sakaguchi, the forefather of Final Fantasy, or the grandfather rather. He was talking about how, obviously, everyone knows this by now, but originally Final Fantasy VII was being developed for the N64, or we expected it to be an N64 game, but then obviously they lost support to PlayStation, mainly because you know, they didn't want to abandon cartridges. They didn't want to move over to CDs and stuck with cartridges. I think part of that was because Nintendo was set in their ways, and also I think they were producing the cartridges themselves, so they didn't want to have someone else produce their media or something. I believe that was the case anyway. But apparently Sakaguchi was saying that them and Square Enix actually had meetings with Nintendo trying to convince them to move over to CDs. But unfortunately it fell on deaf ears and Nintendo just didn't care. Which kind of like, yeah, it's really funny because if they would have convinced them, things would have been very different. I still think the PlayStation would have been quite successful, but the N64 would have been a hell of a lot more. I think, yeah, Final Fantasy VII probably would have been multi-plat maybe, instead of just exclusive. Because I feel like Sony would have still chucked money at Square Enix to get it. Yeah, and I think we would have had a lot more multi-plat games, and N64 would have had a lot more third-party support, and yeah. Even though it's a cool system, but I think we all know, yeah, it just didn't have a very good game library, did it, in comparison to the PlayStation or the Saturn, really. And that was mainly because of sticking with cartridges, and it was more expensive to develop and to, yeah, you know, and you had a smaller install base sort of thing. So, yeah, I just found that really interesting, you know, how they just didn't give a shit. But I think that was Nintendo's attitude, and part of why they lost a lot of third-party support, because I think everyone knows this, but they kind of ran gaming with an iron fist. Like, for example, you know, during the NES Super Nintendo days, they basically said to retailers, you're not allowed to stock Sega stuff if you want our stuff, pretty much, and a lot of stuff like that. And yeah, they pissed off a lot of like developers and retailers with their practices. So when Sony came, a lot of devs would just flocked over to PlayStation, because the Sony were the new guy in town and were chucking money around and wanted to do whatever they could to get developers on their side. So yeah, but obviously things are very different now. Nintendo kind of, you know, I think with the success of the Switch, you know, people want to just chuck their games on there, you know, regardless of the quality of the port. So but yeah, those are just two really interesting things that came out recently, gaming related wise. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.